Stanley and the Candy Cane Wormhole meet Santa's new delivery guy. One Christmas Eve, a sad little snow squirrel quietly brushed the backup reindeer. His name was Stanley. Stanley wanted to help Santa. He wanted to do more than just brush reindeer, but he was too afraid to ask. And reindeer are very dusty, which made Stanley's nose very twitchy. Stanley slowly moped to the park. Elves were loading the sleigh. Oh boy, it'd be a joy to help, but he didn't feel he was big enough. In the park, Stanley shyly watched the science elves. They were testing a merry-go-round gadget. The boy said, "Santa really wants this to work, so he can deliver gifts faster. He nearly ran out of time last year." The girl said, "Yes, but the wormhole's stubborn. It's hard to open. It wiggles and wobbles and jiggles. We have no idea where it takes you. We need something to make it stable. Let's get the other tools." After they left, Stanley galloped on the gadget to cheer himself up. Choo! The reindeer dust made Stanley sneeze, and that's when something magical happened. Sparkly reindeer dust and squirrel fur covered the candy wheel. It glowed. It whirred. It glowed brighter. It whirred faster, brighter, faster, brighter, faster, until whoosh! A wobbly window whirly swirled up from the merry-go-round. It sniffed of peppermint. It tinkled like icicles. Pleep, plarp, ploop. The window popped in and out. Each time Stanley saw faraway places, he realized this was what the elves called a wormhole. The wormhole pranced all over the park. It sucked up snow, leaves, and rocks. It found Santa's bag and slurped up a bunch of gifts. Stanley knew those gifts would be lost forever. Their kids would be heartbroken. He was so little he couldn't help. Could he? Stanley's heart seemed to sigh. How will you know what you can do unless you try? To Stanley's own surprise, he gave it a try. This is crazy. Stanley grabbed some gear. Really crazy. He held a breath and stepped until he finally leapt into this crazy. This is still crazy. This candy cane wormhole. In the wormhole, Stanley floated like a feather. He flipped, he flittered. His tummy felt flewy gooey. Patooey! A moment later, the wormhole spat Stanley out halfway around the world. In fact, the wormhole zapped Stanley to all sorts of zany spots. Stanley plomped into a swamp. A cranky crocodile was taking a snoo-snoo under the choo-choo. To get the train back, Stanley was pleasant, polite, and practiced patience. Stanley dumpled into a desert. To save the soccer ball without getting his tail tangled in the cactus, Stanley had to mishmash his mind, tinker his thinker, and do some particularly prickly problem solving. Snorkeling undersea, Stanley was gracious and giving. He offered friendship to a lonely nanopus, and in return, she gave him the adorable dolly and 9 hugs. The elves returned to the wormhole. They saw Stanley. After he was patient and giving, the wormhole wobbled less. Stanley made it steadier every time he overcame a challenge. It became easier for the elves to point Stanley to the next gift. Stanley flailed into a forest. Some bristling bees tried to bite his patookus. To blitz the toy bike away from the little buzzers, Stanley had to get healthy. Stanley was frightened of heights. To rescue the robot from the rickety roller coaster, Stanley had to tame his tall terror and be brave. Even though Stanley hurried, he was also helpful. He hauled a groggy sloth away from a vicious volcano. To thank him, the sloth slowly returned the dress and tiara. On a moonshot to Mars, when his green teammate pitched him the game-winning ball, Stanley felt very thankful. Stanley toppled back to the North Pole, and his bag was packed with all the lost gifts. But he was a moment too late. He and the elves missed their chance to give Santa the gifts. As the sleigh happily jingled away, Stanley quietly snuck away. He slumped on a stump, tired, alone, small, a failure. The elves found Stanley. The girl told him how proud she was of him. Stanley had opened the wormhole and bravely jumped in. He overcame so many challenges and saved all the lost gifts. The boy said it was just too bad they ran out of time. Stanley realized something. He didn't have time to get to Santa, but he did have time to get to those kids. Another crazy idea hit him. But could this little squirrel do it? Absolutely. Positively. Definitely. Maybe. The wormhole was kind of stable. The elves sort of knew how to drive it. And Stanley was pretty sure he could deliver those gifts through the wormhole. What could possibly go wrong? All of Stanley's landings went wrong. He oofed and flumped and ouchied every time, but he delivered all the lost gifts before morning. The next day, Santa told Stanley that snow squirrel fur and reindeer dust opened the wormhole. Santa and the reindeer needed help delivering gifts to all the bajillions of children. He invited all the snow squirrels to help. Although the wormholes are still wobbly, Stanley's little heart bounces every Christmas Eve because he's a big help to Santa, like he always dreamed he could be. Help Stanley find your home this year by making your own candy cane wormhole. You'll need 1 saucer, 1 marshmallow, 4 candy canes, 1 piece of chocolate, reindeer dust, and snow squirrel fur. Follow these instructions to make your candy cane wormhole. And for extra fun, use different colors of candy canes and cookie writing gels and other sprinkles to make your wormhole unique. Merry Christmas.